All right. Hello, everybody. It looks like we are live. Don't forget that you can actually do comments during this StreamYard sessions, which is one of the reasons I love StreamYard so much. I was just chatting a little bit behind the scenes here with my fabulous guest today, Dr. Michael Lennox, and I was just telling him I'm like a little fangirl. I'm so excited to be able to have this conversation with him today. So if you guys do not know him yet or don't know about him yet, if you've been around me at all in the last little while, you have heard his name at least once or twice or 50. So just know that you can get on here and post a comment. I do have a couple questions that have already been sent in. But first of all, just tell us about you and tell us how they can find you. I always refer to you in the astrology sense. So most of my audience will know you from your astrology, but tell me more about the dreams. We're already getting this. I gotta show this comment. Totally fangirling here too.
I accept. Yeah, it's funny. Astrology is such a big portion of what I put out there. But in my world, dreams were the first love of my sort of spiritual journey. I started working with dreams and dream interpretation when I was a teenager. This was a gift I discovered quite by accident in a way. And so long before I became an astrologer, long before I even began studying astrology, I was in the world as someone who could teach about dream interpretation. Like while I was still in the corporate world of my experience, I was doing workshops in here in Los Angeles on, learn how to interpret your dreams. It was my first love. And, I've got 3 books published on the topic, and most people don't know that about me.
I've shared all of your books.
They're like, oh, I'm out there in dreamland. My first love.
Yeah, that's I'm so glad to hear that, because again, I did find you because of the astrology, because you showed up as my teacher right when I needed you, and when I had decided to go ahead and branch out into that and start learning. And somebody says the dream man, like, because whenever I had asked you to be on as a guest, I was like, you guys have to know about all of his books. It's amazing. So it's really exciting. I know you have all of the degrees and the PhD and all of the things that you need. And I usually skip over that, because I'm like, if they want to find out all your credentials, they can go to your website, because we just want to get to the good stuff, right? Like, let's just get in and I get so excited just being like, when I get to connect with you, I'm like, oh my gosh, I get to talk to Michael today.
It's adorable.
So let's get into a little bit, like, what are some of the basics that we can know about dreams? I do have some questions, but what would be the basic thing just of overall of dream interpretation that you can...
I think the most important, like if there's one fundamental thing, like if someone were flipping by here where they were only going to watch this for like 2 minutes, what would I want to say about dream work would be this. Having a relationship with your dreams is the point of dream work, which means simply remembering a dream that you've had and thinking about it, you're already doing dream work. Right. So if you come to me and you tell me a dream and I interpret it through this gift that I have, it might look like dream work is knowing exactly what your dream means in the manner that Dr. Michael Lennox might tell you. But that's not dream work. It's just what I do. Dream work is just to have an intimate relationship with your dream experience. And the simplest way that you are doing dream work is to simply remember your dreams. Writing them down takes it to a deeper level, right? The dreams are messages from your unconscious. When you write a dream down, that's like your conscious mind saying back to your unconscious, yep, heard you, got it, paying attention. Now say you decide to share your dream with a friend. That's taking dream work even a further, into the place of like really marinating them. Even if it's like as casual as like, oh my God, Marcy, I had the craziest dream last night. That's dream work, because your unconscious is feeling your curiosity about what the dream world is sort of giving you. Now, if you take it a little bit further and work on it in some fashion, whether it's to think about it in what I call rumination, meaning just sitting around going, that dream, I wonder, the volleyball court and the clown car and that wonderful, lightning flash that happened. Just thinking about it takes it even further. And the most powerful thing you can do with a dream is to take an image from it or a scene from it and do something creative in response to it, like a drawing. Like if I do dream work here in private session, it's like, you can bet my colored pencils are coming out, because we're going to draw. because that is really cooking with gas now, because dreams come from the unconscious where the language is symbolic. Drawing something is a symbolic expression. Now you're talking back to the unconscious in its own language.
Very
Now,
cool.
notice, Jennifer, that not once did I mention understanding what the dream means. Now, if you come to me and you tell me your dream, my gift is going to be able to give you universal meaning behind the dream. And I've had 40 plus years of experience of doing that and have people go, wow, that makes so much sense, because there's power in the universal meaning that I am able to channel with ease. But really what I'm out there trying to get people to do is just pay more attention to your dreams, because it's a sacred way that the inside of you is trying to express itself to you in such a way that we become more authentically who we are by spending a moment thinking about what our unconscious mind wants to let us know at a given moment.
Very cool. So that's actually perfect for this first question that I have. How can I remember my dreams the next morning? And then the second part of this is, how can I use my dreams to connect to my guides, angels, and higher self?
Ooh, love that question.
Mm-hmm.
Let's handle them differently because they're very different questions. So
right.
When it comes to remembering dreams, the challenge is that the area of the brain that we are experiencing the visual dream experience is sort of like over here, right? But the area of the brain that processes visual information with our eyes is like over here. And the part that sort of knows where we are in time and space is also like over here, which is all asleep when we're dreaming. And then we wake up, and now this part of the brain is way louder than this part of the brain. And so dream memory goes away, right? So it's just a function of the miracle of our conscious mind coming back online is so loud, it diminishes the quietude of the dream state. So what we want to accomplish is to have that window in the morning open longer than to slam shut real quick. So one thing is intention. Intention is everything. You got to set the intention before you go to bed. And the more sacredly you do that, I think the more powerfully it lands. Second thing, you got to put the recording device by your bed, right? There can be no obstacle between you and having to write something down, because you will forget it halfway up, I also think, and this is partly an age thing, writing your dreams down is way more powerful than recording them into a recorder. And if you're trying to trigger your dreams to be remembered in the morning more, don't use a recording device, use a paper and pen. Partly because this third piece, which is the most important one, is you go to the pad in the morning no matter what. Even if what you have to write down is, I don't remember anything from last night. And then you wait a moment, see if anything comes, and if it doesn't, then you move on with your day. That third step of putting the behavior into place, whether or not there's been some dream memory, that's the sort of magic ingredient that can help spark the unconscious to keep that window open a little bit longer. And I have heard reported back to me that this has worked like gangbusters with some people. It might take a little while, it might take you a couple of weeks, but it's that. Set the intention, have the device nearby, go to the pad in the morning, no matter what. And eventually the window will stay open longer and you'll start remembering your dreams. If you wait for the big, juicy dream before you write it down, you'll be waiting a very long time.
Right. Well, and you're right about the habit. Like, I think sometimes people are like, oh, I just don't remember, so they don't do anything. But if you really want to make something a practice, yes. I do that with the angel communication. If you don't get it the first time, you still have to keep trying, because you've got to be in the practice of it.
Yeah, you got to be in the practice of it. And there are ways that the dream memory will be quietly there that you won't notice because you're not in the habit of noticing. Like, I can even think of just a week or two ago where I had a dream memory, and if I had written it down, it might have revealed more of the dream to me in that moment. Right. But I was like, not that important. And then it was gone. That idea that you have the vivid memory of the dream. You're like, oh, I'll never forget this. It's like, trust me, you're going to forget it. It's a different area of your brain operating. You're not going to remember.
Yeah.
I love this other question though about getting in touch with your guides. I want to clarify one thing. I am certainly someone who has a lot of guides and guidance. Mm-hmm. I've been told I have a lot of guides. The last person who read into me and spoke to this said, you've got like 20 guides. And I'm like, well, yay. I do not have a relationship with those guides. Now, I have a relationship with channeling divine wisdom. I know what it feels like to be operating in a divine expression, which is different than if we were having a cup of coffee.
Right.
I know exactly what it feels like, but I don't have any sense of what or whom is guiding me. So I'm not really equipped to answer this question in one way, right? I want to be really transparent about that because I have a real blind experience of my own guidance system. But petitioning one's dreams, which is a discipline of using the dream conversation to have a deeper understanding of self, is an act that can bring guidance about anything, including getting in touch with guides. What that means is you have an idea before you go to bed of something you want your dreams to speak into. Maybe you write it down. Tell me more, higher self, about this relational challenge I'm having with this dream that I might have in the morning. And then you wake up in the morning, a dream comes and you're like, oh, well, that's interesting. And you process that. You can do that with guides. You can go to bed with the intention declared and stated, dream state, higher self, bring me information about specific guide energies that surround me that I might have a deeper relationship with. And see what happens in your dream state. Again, I can't speak from experience, don't know, but if someone asked me, as someone sort of has, that would be the guidance I would give. Specifically petition your dreams before you go to bed to give you information about guides you want to have a relationship with, and then see what happens. Keep doing it and see what builds.
Right. And again, consistency.
Consistency.
So, and I love that you said that. It's funny because first of all, your guides are all standing behind you and they're like, whatever, like they're like, yeah, right. Like when you're channeling that, they're giving you information. So you're always in that flow.
I feel that.
Yeah.
I get guide envy sometimes. When someone says, my guides are telling me, it's like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's just, you process it different because it's so already in your heart that it's just flowing through, which is why it feels so flawless for you and doesn't feel separate. So anyway, there's that part. But then the other part would be, I would give very similar, as far as working with your guides and angels. That's exactly what I would have said, is just pray before you go to bed.
That counts. That counts that two different spiritual teachers who work in very different ways have the same answer to the question. Mm-hmm. Pay attention to that, questioner.
Yeah. So, okay. So then the next question is, it says, a friend of mine keeps having nightmares, scary dreams, like getting lost in a big city and can't find his car or keys. And it's usually dark. This is a recurring dream.
Yeah.
Are you okay with doing some interpretation?
Oh, God, yeah. Oh, bring it on, baby. Bring it on.
Let's do that.
Well, the unsexiness of recurring dreams is that they are designed to relieve stress. So what happens in the brain is very economical. If you have an image that matches the stress experience, the brain will call it up every time that dreamer is in a stressed experience that reflects this kind of lost sensation, right? For some people, it's being chased by a shark. For others, it's the gun person. It's the tsunami for someone else. It's falling off the cliff for somebody else. Younger people, 30 something and younger, it's all freaking zombies and vampires because they grew up with those images in video games and media. So here's how it works. You're stressed as a kid one day, feeling lost or overwhelmed by life, just because that happens, right? So you go to sleep, you have a dream about what was the
getting lost in a big city.
Getting lost, yeah. Right? Getting lost is a beautiful sort of symbolic trope for what it can feel like any given day when you lose center, right? So, but say that dreamer is 7 or 8 years old, feels a little lost out there on the playground, goes to sleep and has a dream of feeling lost. That fearful sense of I can't find my way matches the stress, the living life stress. And then by some miracle of how the brain works, we wake up the next day able to meet the stress of the of life again, because in the dream state, we processed our fear. So now the brain is like, ooh, that image worked. Now we know that every time this dreamer is stressed about life feeling overwhelming, we can throw them that dream about feeling lost. And then somehow the soul relieves itself somehow of stressors by virtue of, I like to think it's just like our shadow just needs to speak to us. It just needs to feel like it is being seen and heard. So that the shadow in dreams says, I'm frightened. And then the dreamer's like, gotcha. We wake up ready to face the day because our dream helped us. So then it becomes a recurring dream. It becomes economically efficient for the brain to show that image.
Okay. So I'm sitting here thinking about it because I'll tell people this about messages, right? Like, or if something happens, does it always mean anything? It's like, sometimes it does. Sometimes it is a message. Sometimes it's divine guidance. Sometimes it's just crap and you just got to like get it out of your system. Like,
or like it, where it's
happens.
like, yeah, stopping and looking doesn't always yield great results. But
right.
If you have a dream that is recurring, you might wake up in the morning and go, I wonder what experience in my life right now is causing this dream to show up, if you're interested.
So a stressful dream maybe once is like, you've probably been stressed out. A stressful dream repeating would have a different meaning.
Yeah, I would say that if it's repeating, that means the unconscious is feeling still squeezed, like there isn't a recognition. You know, we sometimes move so fast in our modern life, and we're, busy, or productivity is the coin of the realm, or we're afraid to do the deeper work, and so we skate over things. And the brain will just go, knock, 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 knock. Here's that dream again. Here's that nightmare. She's not paying attention. Let's set it up again. All right, go ahead.
So yeah, it's so funny. I only had one recurring dream, and I'm like, do I share? Like, how vulnerable do I get with this? So I've only had one recurring dream ever that I can remember. And it was, I was always, when I was little, I don't even remember, maybe 4, and I had this certain specific dress, and I would go hide under the coffee table. And then this, do you remember that movie? Oh gosh, what's it called? Like, The Abyss, where that like watery looking face comes and it looks under the coffee table at me. And when I finally started working with my guides, I have not had that
dream went away. Of course,
I haven't had it since.
You see, like, that's what a perfect image from the movie, because the image from the movie is suggesting that greater energies, spiritual energies, can inhabit the water to find you and say, hi, we want to hear from you. Yeah. And then when you pay attention, the dream goes away because the unconscious was satisfied.
Yeah. It was like all of a sudden I was like, okay, I get it. Like, I will start talking to my guides. I had that clear into my 20s, like late 20s, until I finally was like, okay, fine, I will start talking to spirit. And then it went, and literally I have never had that dream again. So it's really interesting.
What a perfect validation of what we're talking about.
Right. Right.
Keep knocking on the door until you figure it out. Right. And then no longer needed, it slips away.
So it's so crazy. Like, I hadn't even thought of that in ages. And then just now. So, okay. So the next question is, she had a dream that her friend was at her house that she hadn't seen since like high school. And she said, we were always out at each other's house, but all of a sudden we were waiting for a check to come in the mail, and I got the check and we were all so happy. She goes, I hardly get mail, certainly not a check in the mail. Any ideas what this could mean?
Well, what I would be curious about is even though this is a childhood friend where you haven't seen them for a while, you certainly know who they are or how you knew them to be. A check in the mail is a symbol of unexpected abundance. Mm-hmm. The idea that abundant flow is so great that now and then you can be surprised by something that can come to you if you are in receptivity to it. And so that's in the dream, the unexpected check in the mail. So we do know that the theme of the dream is about a willingness to receive a level of abundance. And since it also includes someone you knew from an earlier part of your life, this is a perfect way to employ the notion that everybody in your dream is reflecting a part of you. Right? So now it's not this person because it's not their dream, but you know who they are. The question I usually ask someone is like, well, give me 3 adjectives that describe this high school friend. And I would be, we're going to assume that this person is watching or will watch this, interview. Think about what that person's thoughts and expressions might have been about abundance or life as filled with joy, something about that quality of that human being that she knew many, many, many years ago. The dream is saying, this is the quality we want right now. And so that would be one consideration of the dream is you figure out what aspect of yourself someone represents by asking, who are they? And are they, warm, affectionate, and generous? Then it's wanting to tap into the warmth, generosity, and affection in you. If they were critical and judgy and awful, then it's that part of you, So that's how I would invite that dreamer to perceive that dream.
So more about the relationship than the check in the mail, really.
Well, the relationship and the person indicates some quality of the human who's having the dream. So that becomes very important. It would be almost like, with the limited information that I have here, what I would say is like the dream is saying you are available to receive more abundance in your life if you tap into the qualities represented by this human being.
Got it. I like that answer.
In my book, one of my first books, I used an example of a dreamer that came up years and years ago, but it was such a perfect story where a woman had a dream about having sex with a coworker that she would never, ever, 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 ever have sex with. But upon investigation, I figured out a couple of things. One is that this woman who had the dream was about to give a presentation and she was very, very nervous. The guy that she had sex with in her dream was somebody who was very slick, very verbal, and really good at presenting. So now sex in the dream isn't about sex at all. It's about joining up and integrating and cultivating the quality of confidence that this person represented in the world at a moment when that's what she needed in her psyche. The dream wasn't about sex at all. It was about confidence in speaking. And that person had it. She necessarily didn't, but the dream allowed her to tap into the part of her, as represented by him, that could step up in confidence when the pedal hit the metal. And then the sex in the dream became the integrating quality.
It's amazing to me how our minds work.
Beautiful.
It's so crazy. So anybody that's watching, I'm going to check comments really quick and see. Okay, so this is a big one. It says she has a dream where she's being choked by a demon that she's trying to exorcise in the dream, and she wakes up choking, unable to breathe. I've had variations of this dream over the last few years.
Wow. On several levels, I would respond to this dream. One is on a very fundamental behavioral level. This sounds to me like a dream about finding your voice, setting boundaries, being clear, knowing who you are, being able to speak into that. And the demon choking is the limits, the inhibitions, the fears, the doubts, the insecurities, the inadequacies. The voice and the throat chakra is the connection chakra. This is how we connect. And think about it. When we're born, the very first thing we do is we rip into this with a breath. So while people can say, well, the heart chakra is the most important one, this is where we're centered, or the crown chakra where we receive guidance, or the root chakra where our needs get met. But honey, this is where we connect. And it's where most people are wildly inadequate.
The only reason I giggled was because I literally just recorded a message for my Patreon members, and I've been talking about, well, my guides, not me, but I've been relaying what my guides are saying about getting our heart in our head in congruency and how we have to work on the throat in order to do that. And I just talked about that with your stuff that we talked about with Venus, right? So I brought in Venus and Pluto. looked at all my notes from the class I took with you, and then took what my guides were saying. And it's this whole week, I'm getting chills right now. It's been all about clearing the throat chakra.
If the heart is here, I mean, the head is here, the heart is here. What is the midpoint? This is how we integrate head and heart, is through our voice, through our communication. And so this dream is a real expression of there's a limitation, there's a limitation, there's a limitation. I would be encouraging of this dreamer to move away from the mystical notions here. Like this is just me. I would not encourage someone having this kind of a dream to go into the demon aspect, or is there some nefarious energy? Is there an entity? Is there because that to me smacks a little bit too much of fear-based consciousness. It's like, deal with the behavioral psyche kind of thing, because if it is, if it is an entity or a demon, it's the demon of lack of voice. It's the demon of I can't set boundaries. It's the demon of I feel inadequate. It's the demon of I don't have a strong voice, not some dark force that's floating around. Those entities that I think exist, they don't have human agency. They have spiritual, lack of free will. They can't run around going, ooh, who am I going to grab today? Oh, she looks like she's,
It's energetic.
It's
energetic. So when you have those thoughts over and over, when you don't have good boundaries and all of those kind of things,
they can attach.
Yes, and it's energetic. So you will bring in that energy, whether it's an entity or even just a mess of energy. Like sometimes I'll call it dust bunnies, because the energy just gets tight.
That's perfect.
So so sometimes it does kind of look like an entity, which is usually somebody who's really had that pattern a really long time and it's almost formed it.
Yes.
Or it's just like, we just need to clear this out. But one of the ways that I like to do that for anybody that's watching, that's having this idea, is I speak my truth with love and grace. Just say that and say that and say that. And that brings your heart and your head in congruency, and you can speak just do that. I speak my truth with love and grace, because when you're trying to set boundaries, you're not doing it to hurt anybody else's feelings. You're not trying to be mean. You're literally trying to do what's best for you. So bring in that aspect of just doing things with love and grace. Okay, so there's another question. Do you have time for a little bit more? We're getting really close to half an hour, which is what I like to keep these to, but I was planning maybe a little extra if you have time for that.
I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good to go a few minutes longer.
Okay. So this one says, for the past month or so, almost nightly, I have had violent dreams. Being shot, shooting others, being stabbed, fighting zombies, being poisoned, having my house catch on fire. Like, I would say collective, but I can't.
I would say stop going to sleep.
You'd say what? I'm sorry.
Stop going to sleep. I'm kidding. So is there like a formed question?
She's just wondering, like, any insight on why the consistent violent dreams?
Well, I'll say a couple of things about this. Loosely in there, I certainly have a sense that when a dream is anything that we would call nightmare-ish, it's got higher stakes, right? That the psyche is bringing us imagery that is more attention grabbing when there's something, when the stakes are a little bit energetically higher. All of those elements of shooting and stabbing, even zombies too, are about change and transformation. If you shoot somebody and they die, that's a death, and deaths are always followed by rebirths. And same with stabbing. Even a zombie is dead, but hasn't had the benefit of the rebirth. So zombie energy is like change and transformation that's only half done. So all of these images reflect overwhelm from fear of change that's beyond their control. And so if bam, 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 night after night after night, it's stabbing and killing and zombies and the first thing to do is respect the fact that there's something happening below the unconscious that's important. Secondly, it's valuable and beautiful. And if we respond to it with a sense of, I'm frightened why this is happening, it shouldn't be, we're in trouble. Because anytime we argue with what is, we're in trouble. Whether it's arguing with yourself about what is in your dream state or arguing with the world about what is in a manner that you can't control. So the first thing I would invite this dreamer to do is to start working with the imagery that's violent and yucky in their waking life. This is where the colored pencils come in. You draw it out. The unconscious is likely continuing to say knock, knock, knock with these violent dreams because it doesn't feel responded to. So respond. Mm-hmm. And the best way to do that is through symbolic expressions and drawing violent scenes. And I don't mean you have to be an artist. I mean, draw, stick figures with blood and zombies or, knives and stabbing. That act is a powerful way to respond. And I promise you, it will be received by the unconscious. You want to break the rhythm and the cycle. That's what's happening here is that it's like repetitive. So get in the conversation, say something back to your unconscious with a drawing or something of that nature, and see if they don't start to shift a little bit.
Very cool. So I always like to say we need to look at everything physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and then galactic because of all of the stuff in the astrology happening right now. So I would add to that, like, do the work that Dr. Michael's telling you to do, but then drink some chamomile tea. Don't watch the news before you go to bed. Like that was the first thing that I was thinking was turn off the news.
I love, Jennifer, that you brought up that piece of it, because sometimes I'm only thinking about the dream state, right? And working with the dream state, but you're absolutely right that a call to action from the unconscious throwing nightmare after nightmare after nightmare is something got to shift about how you are setting yourself up to be stressed as opposed to setting yourself up to have some, groundedness and gentleness inside your body.
So I'm going to kind of go in a different direction and ask a question so that we can kind of get ready to wrap this up before the 45 minutes. Just to be respectful of your time, because I know I told you about half an hour. So does everybody dream every night, or there's sometimes you dream and sometimes you don't? Yeah,
you dream every night, you dream every night, you dream every night. In REM sleep, where the vivid dreams happen, there's other brain processes taking place that are crucial to your very survival. And those happen in the same moment as REM sleep. So when the brain is going into REM, one thing it's doing is it's reviewing all of the data from the day to process it. We've collected all of this information in our brains, and in the brain they are structured as electronic, neural synapses. Synapses in the brain created by electricity that formulate all of the thoughts and sensations that we've had during the day. And if we don't process that stuff, we would lose our minds, right? So in the REM sleep state, we are taking this thing and saying, oh, that's important, remember that. Oh, that's not important, that's not important, that's not, oh, that's important, remember that, oh, that's not important, that, right? So that's happening. If you didn't have that happen, you would start to hallucinate, right? So it's like you can't go to sleep, have REM sleep, and not have the brain processing short-term memory and getting rid of the extra. Another thing that's happening in REM sleep that would literally kill you is that the brain is pooping. All cells metabolize energy and therefore have waste products. All cells. But in the brain, there's no lymphatic system. In the body, the lymphatic system cleanses out the toxins, and then they processed in the kidneys, and we pee that stuff out. The brain can't do that because it's behind the blood-brain barrier. It has to be protected. So what happens in REM sleep is all of the brain cells shrink. By shrinking, the cerebral spinal fluid rushes into all of the spaces in between the brain cells. So while we're dreaming, our brain cells are literally smaller. And when REM sleep is over, the cells squeeze back into their regular shape, pushing the cerebral spinal fluid through the blood-brain barrier, carrying all of this metabolic waste through the blood-brain barrier into the bloodstream and processed by the lymphatic system.
Okay.
All right. Those two things that I went on for 3 minutes to describe are pivotal to your literal physical survival. If you didn't clean out the metabolic waste, your brain would poison itself to death. And if you didn't process the information that's up there, you start to hallucinate and break with reality. This is why after 2 nights or so of not sleeping, you start to have thoughts. You start to hear things that aren't there. It's because the brain doesn't know what to focus on because it's got too much waste in there. And in fact, if you catch up on any sleep, you don't make up any other phase of sleep except for REM, right? It's that important. So all of that to say, when REM is happening, these things are occurring and we're having dreams, even if you don't remember them. So every mammal dreams in this same way. Now, I don't know if dolphins are seeing their little playful pods during their nighttime sleeping, and I think they sleep in weird ways, like they're moving and sleeping, half the brain goes, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
But they're doing the same stuff that we are. We would call that dreaming. So ipso facto, you go to bed, you wake up, you've been dreaming. Some people go a whole lifetime, though, without ever remembering a single dream. And it's got nothing to do with whether they're dreaming or not. It has to do with that window shutting too abruptly for them to have any real memory when they wake up.
It's very rare. Like, I will have dreams, and sometimes I'm like, what was that? And then sometimes I'll be like, for nights where I feel like I didn't have any dreams at all. Yeah. It is really funny that you're talking about survival, because I had this really weird for like a week, and I talked about this in my membership group. I'm like, I keep having the weirdest dreams. So, and I never keep track, but I thought, I'm just getting it for fun, because I had it like 3 nights in a row. And I thought, what is going on? Finally, after about a week, the word that came up was survival. And I realized that my body must be going through more changes. And so I needed a snack before I went to bed. And it's literally it was that simple. When I started doing yogurt and almonds before I went to bed, and
they went away.
I slept peacefully the entire time.
Wow. That's pretty funny.
It's so bizarre. I mean, but you can either analyze that forever and wonder what's wrong, or you can go, well, let's just look at this simply and see.
Well, what I love about that modeling, for people who are watching that, you model with that perfectly what it is I'm trying to get people to do. You didn't dive in and say, oh my God, I've got to analyze this dream to death. You just asked yourself, show me more. Tell me more about this. What do we need to know? What is here? The unconscious will respond.
Mm-hmm. It was amazing. So I'm just fascinated by the whole thing, and I know we could talk forever.
Hours.
I love having conversations with you. So, where would be the best place for people to get a hold of you? I've shared all of your books. I've shared all of your websites, all of your links. I know your Facebook page was down. I don't know what that was all about.
I'm on 8 days now of Facebook jail.
Yeah,
which I don't even understand. I'm going to guess.
I couldn't figure out what you would.
I figure a fundamentalist person, who thinks astrology is from the devil. And please, I'm a gay man who wears a red bathrobe. I'm practically the Antichrist. So I'm assuming somebody complained about that, and Facebook just responded the way they responded.
Oh my God, that's so funny. I share your red robe astrology all the time. So.
So the best place certainly to find me is michaellennox.com, and the links to my, my Instagram, which I'm very active both on Instagram and Facebook, are there. For when I'm out of Facebook jail, it's Dr. Michael Lennox, DrMichael, N-O, 2 N's, O-X. For when I'm out of jail.
So all of the links are actually in the video, but just in case somebody else is saying, I love the red robe. The red robe astrology is my favorite. I'm like, that was so brilliant.
That was the most brilliant stroke of genius that I am not responsible for.
It was a total accident, wasn't it?
Total accident. I was under pressure from my marketing team. It was about 3 years ago that I started investing and expanding my business as a social media based business. And what's the first thing they tell you? You got to post. It's got to be like twice a day. There has to be 31 hashtags. It has to be. And I'm like, ugh. And so I was just struggling for months to find a way to honor what the needs were, but to do it in a way that was both not only sustainable, but that would be fun for me. Otherwise, it's drudgery.
Why do it? Mm-hmm.
And so somehow when I discovered that Instagram and Facebook spoke to each other, then it was like, ooh, I could do something on Instagram that would copy over to Facebook and hit both. But Instagram will only let me do something in 60 seconds or less. Or then it goes into some other click
or whatever. Yeah.
I thought, well, I can do that. And I did it one morning and it was fun. And I did it the next morning. And it was like, this is working. So I started doing it every morning, and people were responding, I think, to the consistency.
Right. Well,
because I was doing it every day.
And it's fun. Like I said at the beginning, I was like a total fangirl. It's fun to see you being you, right?
Well, and I am so lit up and passionate about this stuff. So it's like, I'm like it's like 4:30 in the morning. Maybe it's 5:15 at the latest. I'm still sort of like walking. And then I turn on the camera and it's like, whoa, because I'm lit up because it's what I'm most passionate about.
Right.
I was wearing my red bathrobe because it was 4:30 in the morning.
Right.
The other thing that they were constantly sort of get on me to do is like, share more personal stuff, Michael, share more personal stuff. It's like, I can't. It's like, no one's interested in like the burrito I had. I can't do that, but I'll find ways. I'll try. And so one day I thought, well, it's now spring, almost summer. It's getting warm. Had been wanting to buy a lighter weight bathrobe for mornings during the summer and the spring. And I thought, I'll just do that. Like, what color bathrobe should I get? Well, you would think I was asking for, the cure to cancer, because man, oh man, like, talk about engagement, like 200 people. It's like red, blue, yellow, green, red. I was like, oh, I get it. So I bought a red spring robe. And that became such a big deal that Red Robe Astrology as a hashtag was born.
And it was all just
now I get people to come in session and they'll be like, oh, I kind of thought you'd be wearing the red robe.
Oh.
Makes me feel like Victor Mercado. Is that his name? Vic, do I have it right?
I never know who anybody is. I'm like, I don't know. He was
this famous Latin astrologer who was huge in the, not telenovela, but like, Spanish speaking television, both in Mexico and the United States. And he was very flamboyant, clearly gay. Well, not really, like Liberace. He's so nice. It's like, yeah, no, I think he's gay. But but he had great passion and love, and every day he was like, amor, amor, amor. He was like, I love you, I love you, I love you, and it's like, I'll take it. I don't mind being a kooky guy who's passionate.
No, I think it's so fun because it's like I feel like we're getting like your morning thoughts and like a little heads up. Like like you're on vacation and everybody meets and you have coffee and you're in your robe and then you go about your day. So I love the Red Robe Astrology. Somebody said that they're missing it, but you're still doing it anyway, right?
Yeah, in fact, it's on my personal page, which you can find me as Michael Lennox.
And I know you have to follow. You have to follow him. You can't
be my friend because I have 5,000 friends, but you can follow me on the personal page, and they're on both. And I should be out of jail any minute now.
Any minute.
And you can certainly get the red robes on Instagram.
Yes, true. So again, you guys, thank you for coming on. I always enjoy spending time with you, so I appreciate it so much. Thanks for talking about dream interpretation. And again, you guys get his books. They're amazing. All of his information is in the description for this video. Sending you guys lots of love, and we will talk to everybody soon.